Welcome to the CodeCast podcast. Real-world insights for your daily medical coding and billing processes. And now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 111th episode of the CodeCast podcast today. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving and have now gone back to the gym or at least got a walk in this week. I had a great day last week and loved the pouring rain we got here in Southern California as well. The football could have been better, but hey, when you're forced to watch the Cowboys every Thanksgiving, what can you do? Sorry for my Texas listeners, but I'm a Steeler fan, so you know how it can be. Anyway, hopefully everybody had a good last week, and now that we're back to work and heading into December, I wanted to talk about a topic that just crossed my desk today, and I seriously had to do a double take. It relates to healthcare, and just one more thing that office managers have to deal with. Now, as you know, I have alphabet soup after my name when it comes to coding and auditing certifications, but I get a lot of medical management questions. And so I want to get into some topics just to start the month off, as I know you'll be reflecting about what you need to do in the coming year. Also, many of you may not know that I am not just a certified auditor and coder, but I'm also a qualified medical practice manager, and I have that certification as well. So staying on top of current coding and billing information is as much my focus as the management and day-to-day of your practices. So hopefully you will find today's topics enlightening as well as head-scratching like I did, and bring it to your management's attention if you're not in management yourself. But first, today's CodeCast podcast is also brought to you by Land Rover USA. Explore the winter wonderlands behind the wheel of a new discovery sport. LandRoverUSA.com. And Health Tech Magazine. Tech issues facing healthcare leaders. Sign up for timely insights free at healthtechmagazine.net/subscribe. So there's a topic that I don't know if you're aware of in your practice, but I know that a lot of you play music in your office, and obviously science shows that music can help reduce anxiety and promote healing. So playing music in your waiting room or exam rooms or reception areas makes perfect sense. But are you courting legal liability by doing this? So if you're playing music at your practice without paying for music licenses for your business, you may be on the wrong side of a federal copyright law. I kid you not. So first, let's test your knowledge on this, and I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios and then respond with an answer to it, because I did my due diligence, and I had to, because I had a couple of attorneys say, hey, we know that you have the kind of the heartbeat of healthcare going on in your business. Can you help us with this? So I had to go and figure out some things and some regulations and rules surrounding music by determining whether the following scenarios were true or false, because there's some lawsuits going on. So I wanted you to be able to evaluate your understanding of those rules. So first scenario, let's say you've purchased a personal subscription to Pandora or Spotify, and you use your account over your office's sound system. But since you pay money for the service, is it legal? Well, the answer is no. The fine print in the terms of use, the agreements that you must check in order to proceed with your purchase of your service, specifies that using such services in a commercial setting violates the term of use. So just in case you're thinking, well, I already have a premium account and who's going to notice anyway? You should know that artists and the music licensing companies have the rights to distribute their music and are notoriously aggressive when it comes to asserting their copyright rights. And so I've been dealing with some attorneys on this, and they're like, you have no idea how this has opened up, if lack of a better pun, a Pandora's box on this. So Pandora tries to make clear that, and they are definitely emphasizing this, any business use of the services not specifically permitted in this section is strictly prohibited and may result in immediate termination of your right to use the service. So Pandora does offer a business version, which is called Pandora for Business, and requires users to meet certain conditions. Now, Spotify has similar terms. It says that you promise and agree that you are using the Spotify service and content for your own personal non-commercial use, and that you will not redistribute or transfer the Spotify service or the content. So Spotify has a business legal branch, which is now called Soundtrack. It's just crazy to me because who would ever thought this? You're thinking I own the service, or I should say not own it, but you bought the service, so you can just pipe it in. And I see this happening a lot. And all of a sudden, somebody who's an attorney or somebody who's jumped on a bandwagon feels like now they've got something that they can go back to the copyright music owners and say, look, you have more money coming. Here's a second scenario. You can legally play original content or public domain music. This is true. You can play music that is part of the public domain, but what is that? That generally refers to music originally copyrighted before or during 1922. And that's from the National Federation of Independent Business. 1922. Do we really want that music in our office? I don't think it's very soothing. Number 3. Can you plop down an old-fashioned broadcast radio in your waiting room? They have them on eBay, I think, and Amazon, and let the radio stations choose the music and pay the licensing fee? Well, it depends. Now, here's a good one. If your practice is less than 2,000 square feet, or if it's larger than 2,000 square feet, but uses fewer than 6 speakers or TVs with 4 or fewer in any one room, and you play only terrestrial broadcasts, you may not have to pay an additional licensing fee, says the National Federation of Independent Business. But they note that this exception is not limited to consumer-type radios, but the business can only play, and again, this is the FCC licensed radio or TV, cable satellite counts as TV too. No CDs, no hooking up to an iTunes library, no streaming services. If a business plays any of these services or features live music, and they must get a public performance license. So I was like, are you serious right now? So you have to understand the rules on this. And I can't believe I was actually taking the time to do some due diligence on this, but you'd be surprised some of the questions I get. So music that is not already part of the public domain is copyrighted and subject to federal copyright protections, including payment for use. So there are 3 major performing rights organizations: PRO in the United States, American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, that's ASCAP, Broadcast Music Incorporated, BMI, and CSAC, which used to stand for Society of European Stage Authors and Composers. So these entities ensure that music artists are paid by collecting royalties for their public performances. And believe it or not, I would have thought public performance means live, but public performances include on the radio, on television, and at venues or other spaces, including businesses that play music for their customers who are supposed to purchase licenses to do so. So each of these organizations, performing rights organizations, they represent artists, and to gain licensure with just one pro means you're limited to only songs within their catalog. And this is a more complicated issue in the United States. And believe it or not, the U.S. Department of Justice, an investigation, is now going into the antitrust consent between PRO, BMI, and ASCAP. So this is just ridiculous at this point. So just be aware for healthcare facility. Playing music, whether it's live recorded or on radio and TV programs, in your rehab areas, lobbies, reception areas, waiting rooms, or other areas of your healthcare facility is not free and requires the necessary copyright clearance to ensure that the creators of the music can continue to write it. Even if your business is small and you've been getting away with it using your personal streaming service for years, you may be living a little bit on borrowed time here because the performing rights organization, the pros, have contractors who will travel around the country checking out retailers, bars, restaurants, and other commercial establishments, and now they're coming in as fake patients. So you're not a major focus until all of a sudden somebody pointed this out. And now they are starting to send, and this is how this first came about. They're sending cease and desist letters to some clients. And I was just like, when somebody asked me, they said, Terry, we just got a cease and desist letter from a company that also is represented by BMI. Can you help us with it? And when I looked into it, I'm like, what? So, I understand it, especially when I have people not only in my business, but my music producer for my podcast. And, he's helps me create all of the sounds that you hear coming in and out of different podcasts that I do, plus some of the things I do with music on some of the new training videos that I'm doing. So I understand that certain things are very proprietary. And I personally, all the time, I'll look up something on the internet and all of a sudden I'll see pages out of one of my books that I sell that somebody's using that didn't give me credit. And I'll be like, that's just so unfair, especially since I'm selling this product. So I understand where the artists are coming from with this. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention because that's not something that I would even think of as somebody in the medical field. So just something that I wanted you to be aware of and to see, what you need to do so that you don't get in trouble. There are some people out there that they're scouts and they're coming in and acting as fake patients so they can sit there and listen to your music. So here's another one that comes up, and this is from a Michigan CodeCast member. And she says, Terry, I have a question. This may be outside your wheelhouse, but can you help us with this? So it says, can we utilize the targeted marketing tools on social media like Facebook sites to limit our job posting to certain demographics? The reason we're asking is that we just hired an employee within the last 2 months from Facebook. And we just finished training the employee how to handle all of our coding and billing. And then she went out on maternity leave and didn't disclose that in the interview. Is it possible to limit our job advertisement audience to people who are older than age-bearing age? Okay, so I can't believe I actually got this question, and I think you know the answer. And I told you, and I did check with this subscriber first and let them know I was going to put it on my podcast. But no, you can't. And I know you might be frustrated, but from an employer perspective, and to train an employee and then immediately need to train a temporary replacement, you cannot limit your pool of candidates without violating what they call the ADEA. That's the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. The U.S. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission recently released determinations noting that several companies have violated ADEA by using Facebook's targeted marketing tools to show the ad only to people of certain demographics. The EEOC, again, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, said that these companies were advertising on a social media platform and limited the audience for their advertisement to younger applicants. Although the rulings were made in July, they were not made public until September due to a separate class action lawsuit. Facebook is attempting to change its targeted marketing to protect civil rights, and they came out and said if you are in or want to reach certain people in the U.S. with ads offering housing, employment, or credit opportunities, you must now select the corresponding special ad category in the Ads Manager section, or your ad will not be able to run and will not be approved. So they don't allow those ads to allow targeting by age, gender, zip code, multicultural affinity, or any detailed options describing or appearing to relate to protected characteristics. So what you're describing is not legal, and the biggest social media companies are also taking steps to make it difficult to limit advertising of an employment opportunity to a particular demographic society. So be careful with that. I know it's frustrating, but you have to be very careful with that. You just can't do it. And that's why it's hard right now to hire people, because you may feel like you need a certain type of person in your practice or in your billing office and in a certain scenario, but you have to open up your job market and then weed out from that point. You can't just offer it to a certain classification. And so that's kind of where you're at with that. Okay, so now let's get on to our coding question. And actually, it's about an E&M code symbol that I've had a question about. It says, Terry, what does the plus symbol in front of some evaluation and management services signify? So the plus symbol before each of these codes means that they are add-on codes, so they cannot stand alone. An add-on code always needs a base code. So for an example, the 99214, office or other outpatient visit for evaluation and management of an established patient, which means you need 2 out of 3 components, either a detailed history and or exam, medical decision-making of moderate complexity, would be your base code. And then let's say you wanted to add an additional 30 minutes above and beyond what is necessary for the 99214, then there's a code called the prolonged service evaluation, 99354. And this is in the office or other outpatient setting, but you need to have a base code first before you can add that on. And then that would be your add-on code for that above and beyond. So just be aware that add-on codes cannot be billed separately. There's only one exception, and that would be on the same date if you had multiple physicians doing critical care time. So let's say that you did 99291 for the first hour, and CPT's first hour, 30 to 74 minutes. And that's why they let you round up. And then let's say a different physician within the same group practice at a different encounter had an additional 30 minutes of critical care time. The 99292 add-on code is allowed within that same tax ID. So if it's a different physician outside the group, their time would start over. But that's the only add-on code that allows it. So be aware of that add-on codes have to have a base code. You'll see it a lot of times procedurally where, you're trying to bill for, let's say we did a colectomy, 44140, and then we try to do a takedown colostomy, 44139, and it's hard to bill that by itself. It's sometimes all they did was the takedown. Or let's say that you did a branch of a stent. So you did one in the LAD, left anterior descending artery, and then you also did a branch stent in the diagonal. Well, luckily, the code for the main artery also says and or branch. So you wouldn't be stuck there. But you don't want to use an add-on code by itself. It just doesn't get paid. I noticed that I see some physicians in heart caths say, well, we had another doctor come in where they ended up doing the fractional flow reserve wire pressure measurements for hemodynamics on a patient. And that code is 93571, but it's an add-on code, and they didn't do the original heart cath. So they're not actually getting paid unless it's billed out under the physician that was the lead physician that did everything, and then you just pay that doctor a fee since they were both in the encounter. So you have to be careful with those add-on codes because we not only have them with E&M, but we also have them with procedures, and they do not stand alone. Okay, so I wanted to just give you some foresight into what's coming up with the CodeCast. I'm going to get back to my modifier spotlight, so we'll start that next week. And then we're going to be getting into some discussions on specific specialties, I'm hoping, and look at some of the procedures there, and then really look at some of the things that are coming up for 2020. So on the last Tuesday of the month, where I do Top 10 Tuesday on the 31st of December, I'm going to have the top 10 that you need coding issues for 2020. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you listen into that. So I don't like to do an update because I do an update that you actually need to pay for. That is a webinar series that comes with a PowerPoint. And so you have it in writing. And I prefer you have that in writing because remember, the CodeCast podcast is for your insight, for your edification, for your kind of your quick hit learning each week, to actually be educated on coding and billing, and to also get CEUs. You need to take a webinar series. You need to take a teleconference. You need to take a webcast, which I'm going to start doing video ones as well, so we can actually have a face-to-face conversation, or a seminar series where I'm somewhere live or attend a conference. I love that I have almost 100,000 listeners right now listening to the CodeCast podcast, and I really appreciate all of you. But you really need to get a webcast or a webinar under your belt that you can get CEUs for. Even if you're not a certified coder, you want to get a certificate of attendance that shows that written documented proof on what you're learning. So you can't continue your education unless you have some information that is written down for you to refer back to. So I'm updating my website this month, so you'll be able to see all the things that we offer for the rest of December and then on into 2020. We have some really good webcasts, so hopefully you'll enjoy those. So my personal insight this week is a fun fact you may not know. You've probably heard the chemical tryptophan. That is said to cause sleepiness and exists in higher quantities in chicken rather than in turkey. So for those of you that felt like a nap after Thanksgiving dinner last week, it may have been all the food you ate, not just the turkey. So for those of you that had 3 pieces of pumpkin pie, just saying, that could have been it. But hopefully, again, everybody had a good start to your holiday season, and you're well into now hopefully shopping for Christmas and Hanukkah and all the new good fun things that are coming up in December. So that's it for me on this Terry Tuesday. Make it a great day and a great week, and thank you for listening to the CodeCast podcast.
For more information on medical coding, billing, auditing, and compliance, including how to hire Terry, follow Terry on Twitter @TerryCoder1 or visit her website at www.terrycoder1.com. www.terryfletcher.net. Podcast producer Joe Kuzma. Music producer Dassassin Music.